Resuming on page 617. Intelligence. The product resulting from the collection, collation, evaluation, analysis, integration, and interpretation of all collected information. Intelligence collection plan. A plan for gathering information from all available sources to meet an intelligence requirement. Intelligence contingency funds. Appropriated funds to be used for intelligence activities which are unforeseen at the time of the budget and when the use of other funds is not applicable or would jeopardize or impede the task of an intelligence unit. Such funds are almost invariably used for covert activities. Intelligence cycle. The steps by which information is assembled, converted into intelligence, and made available to consumers. The cycle is composed of 4 basic phases. 1. Direction. The determination of intelligence requirements, preparation of a collection plan, tasking of collection agencies, and a continuous check on the productivity of these agencies. 2. Collection. The exploitation of information sources and the delivery of the collected information to the proper intelligence processing unit for use in the production of intelligence. 3. Processing. The steps whereby information becomes intelligence through evaluation, analysis, integration, and interpretation. And 4. Dissemination. The distribution of information or intelligence products in oral, written, or graphic form to departmental and agency intelligence consumers. Intelligence database. All holdings of intelligence data and finished intelligence products at a given department or agency. Information data handling systems. Information systems that process and manipulate raw information and intelligence data. These systems are characterized by application of general-purpose computers, peripheral data processing equipment, and automated storage and retrieval equipment for documents and photographs. Intelligence estimate. An appraisal of intelligence elements relating to a specific situation or condition to determine the courses of action open to an enemy or potential enemy and the probable order of their adoption. Intelligence process. Those steps by which information is collected, converted into intelligence, and disseminated. Intelligence requirement. A consumer statement of information needed which is not already at hand. Intelligence Resource Advisory Committee, IRAC. Established in 1971 to advise the DCI in preparing a consolidated intelligence program budget for the President, it was abolished by the President Ford's Executive Order number 11905, February 1876. Interception. This term generally refers to the collection of electromagnetic signals, such as radio communications, by sophisticated collection equipment without the knowledge of the communicants for the production of certain forms of signals intelligence. Interdepartmental intelligence. The synthesis of departmental intelligence, which is required by departments and agencies of the United States government for performance of their missions. Such intelligence is viewed as transcending the exclusive production competence of a single department or agency. End of page 617, beginning page 618. International Lines of Communication, ILC. Commercial telecommunications links. Interrogation. A systematic effort to procure information by direct questioning of a person under the control of the questioner. Interview. The gathering of information from a person who knows that he or she is giving information, although not often with awareness of the true connection or purpose of the interviewer. This is generally an overt collection technique, unless the interviewer is not what he or she purports to be. Joint intelligence. Intelligence produced by elements of more than one military service. Joint intelligence estimate for planning. JIEP, a worldwide series of strategic estimates prepared annually by DIA for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It is intended to be used as a base for developing intelligence annexes for JCS plans. Key Intelligence Question, KIQ. Topics of particular importance to national policymakers, as defined by the DCI. Link encryption. The application of online crypto operations to a communication system link so that all information passing over is totally encrypted. Links of communication. Quote, links, end quote, is a general term used to indicate the existence of a communications facility between 2 points. Microwave relay, a process for propagating telecommunications over long distances by using radio signals relayed by several stations within, quote, line of sight, end quote, from one another. Monitoring, the observing, listening to, or recording of foreign or domestic communications for intelligence collection or intelligence security. Example, COMSEC, COMSEC, purposes. Multiplexing, a technique which allows one signal to carry several communications. Example, conversations, messages, simultaneously. National intelligence, intelligence produced by the CIA, which bears on the broad aspects of United States national policy and national security. It is of concern to more than one department or agency. National Intelligence Authority, NIA, an executive council created by President Truman's executive order of January 22, 1946, which had authority over the simultaneously created Central Intelligence Group. The NIA was a predecessor to the National Security Council. National Intelligence Estimate, NIE, an estimate authorized by the DCI of the capabilities, vulnerabilities, and probable courses of action of foreign nations. It represents the composite views of the intelligence community. National Security Agency, NSA, established by President Truman, October 24, 1952, to replace the Armed Forces Security Agency, AFSA. National Security Council Intelligence Directive, NSCID, intelligence guidelines issued by the NSC to intelligence agencies. NSCIDs are often augmented by more specific DCIDs and by internal departmental or agency regulations. Net Assessment Group, the group within the NSC staff that was responsible for reviewing and evaluating all intelligence products and producing net assessments. It was abolished in June 1973. End of page 618, beginning page 619. Notionals, fictitious private commercial entities which exist on paper only. They serve as the ostensible employer of intelligence personnel, or as the ostensible sponsor of certain activities in support of clandestine operations. Office of Policy Coordination, OPC, an office in CIA established in 1948 to carry out covert action missions, assigned to CIA by the National Security Council. The Office of Special Operations, OSO. Prior to 1952, OSO was a CIA component responsible for espionage and counter-espionage. It merged with CIA's Office of Policy Coordination to form the Directorate for Plans. Office of Strategic Services, OSS, the United States Intelligence Service, active during World War II. It was established by President Roosevelt in June 1942 and disbanded on October 1st, 1945. Operational intelligence. Intelligence produced to support the planning and execution of operations. Operational use. This term refers to using a person, group, organization, information, etc. in a clandestine operation or in support of a clandestine activity. Operations Coordinating Board, OCB. This replaced the Psychological Strategy Board of the NSC on September 2nd, 1953. Order of battle. This term refers to information regarding the identity, strength, command structure, and disposition of personnel, units, and equipment of any military force. Overt intelligence. Information collected openly from public or open sources. Paramilitary forces. Forces or groups which are distinct from the regular armed forces of a nation, although they may resemble regular forces in organization, equipment, training, or mission. Paramilitary operation. An operation undertaken by paramilitary force. Penetration. The recruitment of agents within, or the planting of agents or technical monitoring devices within a target organization to gain access to its secrets or to influence its activities. Photographic intelligence. Photint. P-H-O-T-I-N-T. Information or intelligence derived from photography through photographic interpretation. Plain text. Unencrypted communications, specifically the original message of a cryptogram expressed in ordinary language. Planning and Coordination Group, PCG. A committee of Operations Coordinating Board of the Operations Coordinating Board of the National Security Council. PCG became the normal channel for policy approval of covert operations under NSC Directive 5412/1 in 1955. Plausible denial. Blank. Plumbing. A term referring to the development of assets or services supporting the clandestine operations of CIA field stations, such as safe houses, unaccountable funds, investigative persons, surveillance teams. Political intelligence. Originally arranging, coordinating, and conducting covert operations so as to, quote, plausibly, end quote, permit official denial of United States involvement, sponsorship or support. Later, this concept evolved so that it was employed by high officials and their subordinates to communicate without using precise language. End of page 619, beginning page 620, which would reveal authorization and involvement in certain activities and would be embarrassing and politically damaging if publicly revealed. Processing. The manipulation of collected raw information to make it usable in analysis or to prepare it for data storage or retrieval. Product. Finished intelligence reports disseminated by intelligence agencies to appropriate consumers. Production. The preparation of reports based on an analysis of information to meet the needs of intelligence users, consumers, within and outside the intelligence community. Propaganda. Any communication supporting national objectives which is designed to influence opinions, emotions, attitudes, or behavior of any group in order to benefit the sponsor, either directly or indirectly. Proprietaries. A term used by CIA to designate ostensibly private commercial entities capable of doing business, which are established and controlled by intelligence services to conceal government affiliation of intelligence personnel and or government sponsorship of certain activities in support of clandestine operations. Psychological Strategy Board, PSB, an NSC subcommittee established in 1951 to determine the desirability of proposed covert action programs and major covert action projects. Psychological warfare. The planned use of propaganda and other psychological actions to influence the opinions, emotions, attitudes, and behaviors of hostile foreign groups so as to support the achievement of national policy objectives. Reconnaissance. A mission undertaken to obtain by observation or other detection methods information about the activities and resources of foreign states. Requirement. A general or specific request for intelligence information made by a member of the intelligence community. Safe house. An innocent appearing house or premises established by an intelligence organization for conducting clandestine or covert activity in relative security. Sanitize. The deletion or revision of a report or document so as to prevent identification of the intelligence sources and methods that contributed to or are dealt with in the report. Scan. In electromagnetic or acoustical contexts, a scan is one complete rotation of an antenna. With regard to ELINT, it refers to the motion of an electronic beam through space which is searching for a target. Scientific and technical intelligence. Information or intelligence concerning foreign progress in basic and applied scientific or technical research and development, including engineering, R&D, new technology, and weapons systems. Security measures taken by the government and intelligence departments and agencies, among others, for protection from espionage, observation, sabotage, annoyance, or surprise. With respect to classified materials, it is the condition which prevents unauthorized persons from having access to official information, which is safeguarded in the interests of national defense. End of page 620, beginning page 621. Sensitive. Something which requires special protection from disclosure, which could cause embarrassment, compromise, or threat to the security of the sponsoring power. Service Cryptologic Agencies, SCAs. These are the Army Security Agency, Naval Security Group Command, and Air Force Security Service. Their signals, intelligence, collection functions were brought under the operational control of the Director of NSA when the SCAs were confederated into the Central Security Service in 1971, and the Director of NSA was given extra responsibility as Chief of the CSS. Sheep dipping. The utilization of a military instrument, example, an airplane, or an officer in clandestine operations, usually in a civilian capacity, or under civilian cover. Although the instrument or officer will covertly retain its or his military ownership or standing, the term is also applied to the placement of individuals in organizations or groups in which they can become active in order to establish credentials so that they can be used to collect information of intelligence interest on similar groups. Signal. As applied to electronics, any transmitted electrical impulse. Signals intelligence. SIGINT. SIGINT. The general term for the foreign intelligence mission of the NSA/CSS. SIGINT involves the interception, processing, analysis, and dissemination of information derived from foreign electrical communications and other signals. It is composed of three elements: communications intelligence, COMINT, electronics intelligence, ELINT, and telemetry intelligence, TELINT. Most SIGINT is collected by personnel of the Service Cryptologic Agencies. Source: a person or thing or activity which provides intelligence, information. In clandestine activities, the term applies to an agent or asset, normally a foreign national, being used in an intelligence activity for intelligence purposes. In interrogations, it refers to a person who furnishes intelligence information, with or without knowledge that the information is being used for intelligence purposes. Special agent: a United States military or civilian who is a specialist in military security or in the collection of intelligence or counterintelligence information. Special group, augmented: a NSC subcommittee established in 1962 to oversee Operation Mongoose, a major CIA covert action program designed to overthrow Fidel Castro. Special Group, CI. The Special Group on Counterinsurgency established by NSAM 124 on January 18, 1963 to ensure the design of effective intra-agency programs to prevent and resist insurgency. Paramilitary operations were a prime focus. /412/Special Group, an NSC subcommittee that was the predecessor to the 40 Committee. Special Operations Division, SOD. A facility at Fort Detrick, Maryland, that was the site for research and some testing and storage of biological and chemical agents and toxins. Sterilize. To remove from material to be used in covert and clandestine actions any marks or devices which can identify it as originating with the sponsoring organization or nation. End of page 621, beginning page 622. Strategic intelligence. Intelligence required for the formation, of policy and military plans and operations at the national and international levels. Subversion. Actions designed to undermine the military, economic, political, psychological, or moral strength of a nation or entity. It can also apply to an undermining of a person's loyalty to a government or entity. Surreptitious entry. Blank. Surveillance. Systematic observance of a target. Tactical intelligence. Intelligence supporting military plans and operations at the military unit level. Tactical intelligence and strategic intelligence differ only in scope, point of view, and level of employment. Target. A person, agency, facility, area, or country against which intelligence operations are directed. Targeting. In regard to comment, the intentional selection and or collection of telecommunications for intelligence purpose. Target of opportunity. A term describing an entity, example, governmental entity, installation, political organization, or individual, that becomes available to an intelligence agency or service by chance, and provides the opportunity for the collection of needed information. Task. A term connotating the assignment or direction of an intelligence unit to perform a specified function. Telecommunications. Any transmission, emission, or reception of signals, signs, writing, images, and sounds or information of any nature by wire, radio, visual, or other electromagnetic systems. 10.5 panel. A predecessor to the 40 Committee of the NSC. 303 Committee. A predecessor to the 40 Committee of the NSC. Toxin. Chemicals which are not living organisms, but which are produced by living organisms and are lethal. Traffic. Messages carried over a telecommunications network. United States Country Team. The senior in-country United States coordinating and supervising body, headed by the chief of the United States diplomatic mission, usually an ambassador, and composed of the senior member of each represented United States department or agency. United States Intelligence Board, USIB, until it was abolished by Executive Order Number 11905, February 1876. USIB was the NSC's Central Coordinating Committee for the Intelligence Community. Watch list. A list of words such as names, entities, or phrases, which can be employed by a computer to select out required information from a mass of data. End of page 622. Beginning page 623. List of abbreviations. ACDA, Arms Control and Disarmament Agency. ACS, in parentheses, I, end parentheses, Army Chief of Staff for Intelligence. AFOSI, Air Force Office of Special Investigations. AFSA, Armed Forces Security Agency. ARC, Ad Hoc Requirements Committee. ASA, Army Security Agency. ASD/I, Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence. ASD/PA and E, Assistant Secretary of Defense for Program Analysis and Evaluation. ASW, Anti-Submarine Investigation. BI, Background Investigation. BNDD, Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. BNE, Board of National Estimates. CDIB, Consolidated Defense Intelligence Budget. CDIP, Consolidated Defense Intelligence Program. CFI, Committee on Foreign Intelligence. CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. CI and IA, Counterintelligence and Investigative Agency. CIG, Central Intelligence Group. CIRL, Current Intelligence Reporting List. CJCS, Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff. COMINT, Communications Intelligence. COMIREX, Committee on Imagery Requirements and Exploitation. COMOR, Committee on Overhead Reconnaissance. COMSEC, Communication Security. CONUS, Continental United States. CSS, Central Security Service. DAS, Defense Attaché System. DCI, Director of Central Intelligence. DCID, Director of Central Intelligence Directive. DCII, Defense Central Index of Investigations. DDA, Deputy Director for Administration. CIA, or Directorate for Administration. DDCI, Deputy Director of Central Intelligence. DDI, Deputy Director for Intelligence, CIA, or Directorate for Intelligence. DDO, Deputy Director for Operations, CIA, or Directorate for Operations. DDP, Deputy Director for Plans, CIA, or Directorate for Operations. DDP, the last one was DDO. Reading DDP now. Deputy Director for Plans, CIA, or Directorate for Plans. DDR, Deputy Director for Research, CIA. DDS&T, Deputy Director of Science and Technology, CIA, or Directorate for Science and Technology. DDS, Deputy Director for Support, CIA. End of page 623, beginning page 624. DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. DIOP, Defense Intelligence Objectives and Priorities. DIPO, Defense Investigative Program Office. DIRC, Defense Investigative Review Council. DIRDIA, Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. DIRNSA, Director of the National Security Agency. DIS, Defense Investigative Service. KKIQs, Defense Key Intelligence Questions. DMA, Defense Mapping Agency. DOD, Department of Defense. DOJ, Department of Justice. ELINT, Electronic Intelligence. ERDA, Energy Research and Development Administration. EXCOM, Executive Committee. FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation. FBIS, Foreign Broadcast Information Service. FSO, Foreign Service Officer. FYDP, Fiscal Year Defense Plan. GDIP, General Defense Intelligence Program. GRU, Soviet Military Intelligence Service. HUMINT, Human Intelligence. ICS, Intelligence Community Staff. INR, State Department's Bureau of Intelligence and Research. IRAC, Intelligence Resources Advisory Committee. IRNDC, Intelligence Research and Development Council. IRS, Internal Revenue Service. ISA, International Security Affairs. DOD. ISA, International Security Affairs. DOD. J2, Joint Staff Director for Intelligence. DOD. JCS, Joint Chiefs of Staff. JRC, Joint Reconnaissance Center. JSOP, Joint Strategic Objectives Plan. KGB, Soviet National Intelligence Organization. KIQ, Key Intelligence Question. MBFR, Mutual and Balanced Force Reduction. NFIB, National Foreign Intelligence Program. NIA, National Intelligence Agency. NIB, National Intelligence Bulletin. NID, National Intelligence Daily. NIE, National Intelligence Estimate. NIO, National Intelligence Officer. NIS, Naval Investigative Service. NKVD, predecessor to the KGB. NPIC, National Photographic Interpretation Center. NSA, National Security Agency. NSA/CSS, National Security Agency / Central Security Service. NSAM, National Security Action Memorandum. NSC, National Security Council. NSCIC, National Security Council Intelligence Committee. NSCID, National Security Council Intelligence Directive. NSDM, National Security Decision Memorandum. NSSM, National Security Study Memorandum. OCB, Operations Coordinating Board. End of page 624. Beginning page 625. OMB, Office of Management and Budget. ONE, Office of National Estimates. ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence. OPC, Office of Policy Coordination, OSD. Office of the Secretary of Defense, OSO, Office of Special Operations, CIA. OSO, Office of Special Operations, DoD. OSS, Office of Strategic Services. PCG, Planning and Coordination Group, NSC. PFIAB, President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board. PNIOs, Priority National Intelligence Objectives. PSB, Psychological Strategy Board, NSC. R&D, Research and Development. RDT&E, Research, Development, Test and Evaluation. SALT, Strategic Arms Limitation Talks. SCAs, Service Cryptologic Agencies, Collection. SIGINT, Signals Intelligence. SNIE, Special National Intelligence Estimate. SOD, Special Operations Division, Fort Detrick, Maryland. TELINT, Telemetry Intelligence. TOA, Total Obligational Authority. TSD, Technical Services Division, CIA. USAINTA, United States Army Intelligence Agency. USIB, United States Intelligence Board. WSAG, Washington Special Action Group. End of page 625, beginning page 626. Control and direction of U.S. foreign intelligence within the National Security Council system. After Executive Order 11905, February 18, 1976. The President. Underneath, Office of Management and Budget, and President's Foreign Intel Advisory Board, and Intel Oversight Board, or Oversight Board. Underneath, National Security Council with the President, Vice President, Secretary of State, and Secretary of Defense. NSC staff. Underneath, Committee on Foreign Intel, CFI, DCI, O/SEC, DEF, DAP/NSA. And so also you have Director of Central Intelligence and Operations Advisory Group, Operations Group, AP/NSA, Secretary of Defense, or Secretary of State, C/JCS, DCI. And this is connected with the NSC staff, where you have that connecting line between these two. And with the Committee on Foreign Intel, you have it connected to the bottom, or bottom box, which says Intelligence Community Staff, IC. So underneath, you have that, and you have USIB, USIB Committee, and NIO structure. Underneath, you have Service Intel components, USA, ACSI, USH, DHI, USN, DNI, and USAF, ACSI. Next you have NSA, CSS, Director, DIA, Director, CIA, DDCI, State, INR, Director, then TREAS, SPASST, to SEC, then FBI, ASST, DIR, and then ERDA, D/AA. I'm going to stop describing these charts, so I'll just move on to page 627. I will not describe these, I will just scroll past them. End of page 627, beginning page 628. Senate Resolution 21, 94th Congress, First Session. In the Senate of the United States, January 21st, 1975. Mr. Pastor submitted the following resolution, which was ordered to be placed on the calendar under General Orders. January 27, 1975. Considered, amended, and agreed to. Resolution to establish a select committee of the Senate to conduct an investigation and study with respect to intelligence activities carried out by or on behalf of the federal government. Resolved to establish a select committee of the Senate to investigate and to conduct an investigation and study of governmental operations with respect to intelligence activities and of the extent, if any, to which illegal, improper, or unethical activities were engaged in by any agency of the federal government, or by any persons acting individually or in combination with others, with respect to any intelligence activity carried out by or on behalf of the federal government. Be it further resolved that A. There is hereby established a select committee of the Senate which may be called for convenience. End of page 628, beginning page 629. Of expression. The Select Committee to study governmental operations with respect to intelligence activities, to conduct an investigation and study of the extent, if any, to which illegal, improper, or unethical activities were engaged in by any agency or by any persons acting either individually or in combination with others, in carrying out any intelligence or surveillance activities by or on behalf of any agency of the federal government. B. The Select Committee created by this resolution shall consist of 11 members of the Senate, 6 to be appointed by the President of the Senate from the majority members of the Senate, upon the recommendation of the majority leader of the Senate and 5 minority members of the Senate to be appointed by the President of the Senate upon the recommendation of the minority leader of the Senate. For the purposes of paragraph 6 of Rule 25 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, service of a senator as a member, chairman, or vice chairman of this select committee should not be taken into account. C. The majority members of the committee shall select a chairman, and the minority members shall select a vice chairman. The committee shall adopt rules and procedures to govern its proceedings. The vice chairman shall preside over meetings of the select committee during the absence of the chairman and discharge such other responsibilities. End of page 629, beginning page 630. As may be assigned to him by the select committee or the chairman. Vacancies in the membership of the select committee shall not affect the authority of the remaining members to execute the functions of the select committee and shall be filled in the same manner as original appointments to it are made. D. A majority of the members of the select committee shall constitute a quorum for the transaction of business, but the select committee may affix a lesser number as a quorum for the purpose of taking testimony or depositions. Section 2. The select committee is authorized and directed to do everything necessary or appropriate to make the investigations and study specified in subsection A of the first section, without abridging in any way the authority conferred upon the select committee by the preceding sentence. The Senate further expressly authorizes and directs the select committee to make a complete investigation and study of the activities of any agency or of any and all persons or groups of persons, organizations of any kind which have any tendency to reveal the full facts with respect to the following matters or questions. 1. Whether the Central Intelligence Agency has conducted an illegal domestic intelligence operation in the United States. End of page 630, beginning page 631. 2. The conduct of domestic intelligence or counterintelligence operations against United States citizens by the Federal Bureau of Investigation or any other federal agency. 3. The origin and disposition of the so-called Houston Plan to apply United States intelligence agency capabilities against individuals or organizations within the United States. 4. The extent to which the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Central Intelligence Agency, and other federal law enforcement or intelligence agencies coordinate their respective activities, any agreements which govern that coordination, and the extent to which a lack of coordination has contributed to activities or actions which are illegal, improper, inefficient, unethical, or contrary to the intent of Congress. 5. The extent to which the operation of domestic intelligence or counterintelligence activities and the operation of any other activities within the United States by the Central Intelligence Agency conforms to the legislative charter of that agency and the intent of the Congress. 6. The past and present interpretation by the Director of Central Intelligence of the responsibility to protect intelligence sources and methods as it relates to. End of page 631, beginning page 632. The provision in Section 102D3 of the National Security Act of 1947, 50 U.S.C. 403D3, that, quote, that the agency shall have no police, subpoena, law enforcement powers, or internal security functions, end quote. 7. Nature and extent of executive branch oversight of all United States intelligence activities. 8. The need for specific legislative authority to govern the operations of any intelligence agencies of the federal government now existing without that explicit statutory authority, including, but not limited to, agencies such as the Defense Intelligence Agency and the National Security Agency. The nature and extent to which federal agencies cooperate and exchange intelligence information, and the adequacy of any regulations or statutes which govern such cooperation and exchange of intelligence information. 9. The extent to which United States intelligence agencies are governed by executive orders, rules, or regulations, either published or secret, and the extent to which those executive orders, rules, or regulations interpret, expand, or are in conflict with specific legislative authority. 10. The violation or suspected violation of any state or federal statute by any intelligence agency, or, end of page 632, beginning page 633, by any person, by or on behalf of any intelligence agency of the federal government, including but not limited to surreptitious entries, surveillance, wiretaps, eavesdropping, illegal opening of United States mail, or the monitoring of the United States mail. 11. The need for improved, strengthened, or consolidated oversight of United States intelligence activities by the Congress. 12. Whether any of the existing laws of the United States are inadequate, either in their provisions or manner of enforcement, to safeguard the rights of American citizens, to improve executive and legislative control of intelligence and related activities, and to resolve uncertainties as to the authority of United States intelligence and related agencies. 13. Whether there is a necessary duplication of expenditure and effort in the collection and processing of intelligence information by United States agencies. 14. The extent and necessity of overt and covert intelligence activities in the United States and abroad. 15. Such other related matters as the committee deems necessary in order to carry out its responsibilities under Section A. Section 3. A. To enable the Select Committee to make the investigation and study authorized and directed by this. End of page 633, beginning page 634. Resolution. The Senate hereby empowers the Select Committee as an agency of the Senate. 1. To empower and fix the compensation of such clerical, investigatory, legal, technical, and other assistance as it deems necessary or appropriate, but it may not exceed the normal Senate salary schedules. 2. To sit and act at any time or place during sessions, recesses, and adjustment periods of the Senate. 3. To hold hearings for taking testimony on oath or to receive documentary or physical evidence relating to the matters and questions it is authorized to investigate or study. 4. To require by subpoena or otherwise the attendance as witnesses of any persons who the Select Committee believes have knowledge or information concerning any of the matters or questions it is authorized to investigate and study. 5. To require by subpoena or order any department agency, officer, or employee of the executive branch of the United States government, or to any private person, firm, or corporation to produce for its consideration or for use as evidence in its investigation and study any books, checks, canceled checks, correspondence, communications, document, papers, physical evidence, records, recordings, tapes, or materials relating to any of the matters or questions it is authorized to investigate and study which they or any of them may have in their custody or under their control. 6. To make the Senate any recommendations it deems appropriate in respect. Turn to page 634, beginning page 635. To the willful failure or refusal of any person to answer questions or give testimony in his character as a witness during his appearance before it, or in respect to the willful failure or refusal of any officer or employee of the executive branch of the United States government, or any person, firm, or corporation to produce before the committee any books, checks, canceled checks, correspondence, communications, documents, financial records, papers, physical evidence, records, recordings, tapes, or materials in obedience to any subpoena or order. 7. To take depositions and other testimony on oath anywhere within the United States or in any other country. 8. To procure the temporary or intermittent services of individual consultants, organizations thereof, in the same manner and under the same conditions as a standing committee of the Senate may procure such services under Section 202I of the Legislative Reorganization Act of 1946. 9. To use on a reimbursable basis with the prior consent of the committee on Rules and Administration, the services of personnel of any such department or agency. 10. To use on a reimbursable basis or otherwise with the prior consent of the chairman of any subcommittee of any committee of the Senate, the facilities or services of any members of the staffs of such other Senate committees. Whenever the Select Committee or its chairman deems, end of page 635, beginning page 636, that such action is necessary or appropriate to enable the Select Committee to make the investigation and study authorized and directed by this resolution. 11. To have direct access through the agency of any members of the Select Committee or any of its investigatory or legal assistants designated by it or its chairman or the ranking minority member to any data, evidence, information, report, or analysis or document or papers relating to any of the matters or questions which it is authorized and directed to investigate and study in the custody or under the control of any department, agency, officer, or employee of the executive branch of the United States government, including any department, agency, officer, or employee of the United States government, having the power under the laws of the United States to investigate any alleged criminal activities or to prosecute persons charged with crimes against the United States, and any department, agency, officer, or employee of the United States government having the authority to conduct intelligence or surveillance within or outside the United States, without regard to the jurisdiction or authority of any other Senate committee, which will aid the Select Committee to prepare for or conduct the investigation and study authorized and directed by this resolution. And 12, to expend to the extent it determines necessary or appropriate any monies. End of page 636, beginning page 637. Made available to it by the Senate to perform the duties and exercise the powers conferred upon it by this resolution, and to make the investigation and study it is authorized by this resolution to make. B. Subpoenas may be issued by the Select Committee acting through the chairman or any other member designated by him, and may be served by any person designated by such chairman or other member anywhere within the borders of the United States. The chairman of the Select Committee or any other member thereof is hereby authorized to administer oaths to any witnesses appearing before the committee. C. In preparing for or conducting the investigation and study authorized and directed by this resolution, the Select Committee shall be empowered to exercise the powers conferred upon committees of the Senate by Section 6002 of Title 18, United States Code, or any other act of Congress regulating the granting of immunity to witnesses. Section 4. The Select Committee shall have authority to recommend the enactment of any new legislation or the amendment of any existing statute which it considers necessary or desirable to strengthen or clarify the national security, intelligence, or surveillance activities of the United States, and to protect the rights of United States citizens with regard to those activities. End of page 637, beginning page 638. Section 5. The Select Committee shall make a final report of the results of the investigation and study conducted by it pursuant to this resolution, together with its findings and its recommendations as to new congressional legislation it deems necessary or desirable, to the Senate at the earliest practicable date, but no later than September 1st, 1975. The Select Committee may also submit to the Senate such interim reports as it considers appropriate. After submission of its final report, the Select Committee shall have 3 calendar months to close its affairs, and on the expiration of such 3 calendar months shall cease to exist. Section 6. The expenses of the Select Committee through September 1st, 1975, under this resolution shall not exceed $750,000, of which amount not to exceed $100,000 shall be available for the procurement of the services of individual consultants or organizations thereof. Such expenses shall be paid from the contingent fund of the Senate upon vouchers approved by the chairman of the Select Committee. Section 7. The Select Committee shall institute and carry out such rules and procedures as it may deem necessary to prevent 1. The disclosure outside the Select Committee of any information relating to the activities of the Central Intelligence Agency or any other department or agency of the federal government engaged in activities obtained. End of page 638, beginning page 639. By the Select Committee during the course of its study and investigation, not authorized by the Select Committee to be disclosed, and 2. The disclosure outside the Select Committee of any information which would adversely affect the intelligence activities of the Central Intelligence Agency in foreign countries or the intelligence activities in foreign countries of any other department or agency of the federal government. Section 8. As a condition for employment, as described in Section 3 of this resolution, each person shall agree not to accept any honorarium, royalty, or other payment for a speaking engagement, magazine article, book, or other endeavor connected with the investigation and study undertaken by this committee. Section 9. No employee of the Select Committee or any person engaged by contract or otherwise to perform services for the Select Committee shall be given access to any classified information by the Select Committee unless such employee or person has received an appropriate security clearance as determined by the Select Committee. The type of security clearance to be required in the case of any such employee or person shall, within the determination of the Select Committee, be commensurate with the sensitivity of the classified information to which such employee or person will be given access by the Select Committee. End of page 639, beginning page 640. Staff list. This final report is the result of a sustained effort by the entire committee staff. The committee wishes to express its appreciation to the members of the support, legal, research, and task force staffs who have made a substantial contribution to this report and who have served the committee and the Senate with integrity and loyalty. David Aaron, Task Force Leader. William Bader, Task Force Leader. Barbara Banoff, Counsel. Howard Barkey, Consultant. Frederick Barron, Counsel. Laurie Barlett, Secretary. Lawrence Baskier, Counsel. John Bailey, Counsel. Charity Benz, Office Manager. Richard Betts, Professional Staff Member. Beth Bloomfield, Research Assistant. Sam Bochard, Professional Staff Member. Harriet Bramble, Secretary. Belva Brissett, Secretary. Nancy Brooks, Secretary. Maxine Brown, Secretary. Andrew Burness, Clerk. David Bouchon, Counsel. Margaret Carpenter, Research Assistant. Barry Carter, Counsel. Barbara Chesnick, Research Assistant. Lot Cook, Clerk/Security. Elizabeth Colbreth, Counsel. Lynn Davis, Professional Staff Member. Spencer Davis, Press Secretary. Rhett Dawson, Counsel. Tom Dawson, Research Assistant. James DeMarco, Counsel. Joseph Denon, Counsel. Mary De Orio, Research Assistant. Mary De Temple, Secretary. James Dick, Counsel. Joseph D. Genova, Counsel. Dorothy Dillon, Research Assistant. Patricia Doolittle, Secretary. Daniel Dwyer, Jr. Robert Edwards, Jr., Clerk/Security. John Elliff, Task Force Leader. Betty Ellison, Secretary. Michael Epstein, Counsel. End of page 640. Beginning page 641. Joan Erno, Secretary. Peter Fenn, Professional Staff Member. Harold Ford, Consultant. Richard Garwin, Consultant. Mark Giddenstein, Counsel. Janet Glidwell, Secretary. Bruce Grant, Counsel. Edward Gressing, or Edward Gracing, Research Assistant. Arthur Harringam, Consultant. William Harris, Consultant. Audrey Hattrey, Clerk of the Committee. Deborah Herbst, Assistant Press Secretary. Paulette Hodges. Carl Inderfirth, Professional Staff Member. Portia Iverson, Secretary. Arthur Jefferson, Counsel. Dorothy Johnson, Secretary. Locke Johnson, Professional Staff Member. Yolanda Johnson, Clerk. James Johnston, Counsel. Anne Karalekas, Professional Staff Member. Jeffrey Caden, Research Assistant. Robert Kelly, Counsel. Lawrence Keeves, Control Coordinator. Charles Kerbo, Counsel. Joseph Kirchheimer, Consultant. Diane Copal, Secretary. Susan Kosis, Secretary. Diane Lavoie, Research Assistant. George Lawton, Professional Staff Member. Howard Liebengood. Consultant, Charles Lombard. Professional staff member, Dan McCorkle. Clerk/secretary, Dorothy McIntyre. Dorothy McIntyre. Secretary, Martha McDonald. Secretary, Naldine McDonald. Research assistant, Michael Madigan. Counsel, Ben Marshall. Security director, Cynthia Massioli. Secretary, Judith Mason. Research assistant, Ernest May. Consultant, Betty Mayo. Secretary, Elliot Maxwell. Counsel, Helen Metzke. Clerk, Paul Mitchell. Counsel, William Miller. Staff Director, Patricia Monaco. Secretary, Jeanette Moore. Secretary, Michael Murphy. Clerk/security assistant, Lois Nuss. Secretary, James O. Flaherty. Professional staff member, Jan Orloff. Research director, Lindsay Oster. Clerk. End of page 641, beginning page 642. Drenna Owens. Secretary, John Peterson. Research director, Susan Pitts. Research assistant, Andrew Postal. Counsel, Christopher Pyle. Christopher Pyle. Consultant, Alton Quanbeck. Task force leader, Ted Ralston. Research assistant, Harry Ransom. Consultant, Gordon Rhea. Counsel, Eric Richard. Counsel, Walter Ricks III. Counsel, Alan Romberg. Professional staff member, James Rowe. Research assistant, Ruth Schneider. Secretary, Frederick A. O. Schwartz, Jr. Chief Counsel, Paula Schwartz. Clerk, Lester Seidel. Lester Seidel. Counsel, Patrick Shea. Professional staff member, John L. Smith. Counsel, Elizabeth Smith. Research assistant, Stephanie Smith. Clerk, Curtis Smothers. Counsel for minority, Britt Snyder. Counsel, Martha Talley. Counsel, Ethan Theo Harris. Consultant, Florence Thobin. Male clerk, Sherry Tolwell. Office manager, Gregory Treverton. Professional staff member, William Trueheart. Consultant, James Cherokee. Professional staff member, James Turner, Research Assistant. Richard Ullman, Consultant. Paul Wallach, Counsel. William White, Professional Staff Member. Burton Wides, Counsel. Carol Wick, Document Clerk. Joan Wilson, Secretary. Otis Wilson, Consultant. Peter Zimmerman, Consultant. Phoebe Zimmerman, Research Assistant. The end of page 642. And it is the end of Foreign and Military Intelligence, Book 1, the final report of the Select Committee to study governmental operations with respect to intelligence activities. United States Senate, together with additional supplemental and separate views. April 26th, Legislative Day, April 14, 1976. U.S. Government Printing Office, Washington, 1976. 94th Congress, Second Session, Report Number 94-755.